It's good to be here with you this morning. It's be good to be anywhere, but it's really good to be here with you guys. I'm always a little surprised when I open my eyes in the morning. It's good. It's a good way to start the day, just to say thanks. So in the beginning of Alice in Wonderland, and I was thinking, I remember when my mother took me to see Disney's Alice in Wonderland, the cartoon, and I think that came out in the early 50s. So this was the later 50s, but she took me to a special showing of it, and of course I loved it, you know. But anyway, in the beginning of that cartoon, because I still remember how the caterpillar sounded, the caterpillar asks Alice, and he was smoking a hookah, I think. I don't know, he was smoking something anyway. He was smoking something for sure. He says, who are you? And her answer, of course, was kind of shaking. She says, I hardly know, sir. Just at present. At least I know who I was when I woke up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then. And that seems like a pretty good insight, you know, don't you think? But I will now ask you that same question. And this is a question that I've asked you before. Who are you? Are you the approximately 75 trillion cells making up that body that you're currently using as you're sitting here? Are you your thoughts or opinions, your feelings, your fears? Are you your circumstances, your nationality, your ethnicity? Are you your career title? Are you your name? Now, any and all of these things could certainly be said to be a part of what you experience as yourself, or the things that make up the storyline that your life has been. But who is this sense of I that has been with you ever since your earliest memories, experiencing all of these different states and circumstances? Who would you be beyond the story that's been told you and the one that you've told yourself? Now there is a question. Being caught up in the ego, the story of me, is like looking up at the sky through a straw. Now, I'm not here to bash the ego. I'm really not. We all have one. It is a necessary part of us. It's one that helps us to function here. The key word here is part. Like your right hand or your left hand or your ear or your leg. They're parts of you, absolutely. The trouble occurs when we don't realize this and we think it's all of who we are. It's the whole Megillah. Then we have ego problems, because our ego is running the show. It's the story of me. Or in your case, it's the story of you. It's a story we tell ourselves, and that's like looking at the sky through a straw. And by the way, an ego problem can be either too much or too little. You know, it's got to be that sweet spot. There's more to us than the ego, the story. There's more to us, much more. In the past, I've spoken here about Thomas Merton's experience, transcendent experience, standing in the middle of a busy Midwestern city in the middle of the day when he's watching people just going back and forth. He's waiting to go to an appointment. He's just standing there on the corner watching people. And all of a sudden, he has this experience, a transcendent experience, where he sees that everybody is filled with light. Obviously, it changed him. That experience changed him. changed him, significantly. And he tried to tell people, about what he had seen. He tried to share it, but no one seemed to get it. They didn't understand what he was telling them. So I read one of the books that he had written, many books, and he talked about this experience, and he said, how do you tell people they're walking around shining like the sun? He realized you can't. They won't understand it. They can't understand it. Why? Because people get stuck in the story, their story. But that doesn't mean you should stop trying to let them know. And he didn't. He didn't. Unfortunately, he died young and suddenly. So here I am this morning, delivering his message, which is also now my message. The hero's journey is one of the great myths. It's like the template of so many of the stories, whether you're looking at Star Wars or whatever. Anyway, the hero's journey is one of the great myths because it's telling of someone who's stuck in some way. Usually in the story they believe about themselves until something happens that propels them, blasts them out of their comfort zone, sends them where they would not have normally chosen to go. And because of this, they find something they never, ever would have believed, a bigger story, and a truth about themselves that they did not know. The last time I spoke here was in March, and everything looked like it was dead outside. Yet, driving down here today, as I looked, all I could see was life bursting out everywhere. This is also one of the great stories. A recurring story, beginnings and endings. But in every ending is a beginning and vice versa. What seems dead now lives. In Hinduism, there is a saying, Atman is Brahman. Atman, loosely translated, means soul or individual soul. Atman refers to the essence of each living thing, its soul or primary living energy. Each living thing, people, animals, plants, have an Atman that forms each thing's eternal essence. Brahman is world soul or cosmic soul. It's the eternal essence of the universe and the ultimate divine reality. It's the life source of all that has been, is, and will be throughout the entire cosmos. It is not an individual being. It is more like the primal ground or reality of all being and existence. So the phrase Atman is Brahman is saying quite simply that the individual soul is the world soul. So here we all are, now in the 21st century, our time, modern times, but I got to tell you, 1,000 years ago, it was modern times for those people, because that's the only time you can live in. But here we are in the 21st century. Things in the world feel pretty scary, chaotic. They feel tenuous. You've heard me say this before, when everything is breaking down, something else is breaking through. The classic story of the hero's journey is a breaking through story. Always one of trial, doubt, challenge, difficulty, great loss, and through all these, the discovery of something they did not know beforehand. So it's been my personal experience, confirmed by what many others have written or shared with me, that it is usually through some great disruption, something we not have chosen, that we find something within ourselves that we did not know was there. A strength or resilience, a quality, ability, or a talent, a side of us we didn't know we had. Whatever it is, it's revealed. And we're changed by this. Now, maybe we had a little suspicion there was something there, but we just discounted it because we're so caught up in the story we tell ourselves. I believe that's why these myths have endured, because they are our story. Not literally, but metaphorically. And I believe right now we are collectively in such a time, and it is calling us to step beyond the stories that we've been telling ourselves. And that's no easy thing for sure. That's part of the disruption and the unease that we're feeling. I have a slight concern that a lot of the stories, and I've noticed this, I noticed it probably for the last 20 some odd years, of the future are really all dystopian. And I mean, I'm all in on on some dark stuff sometimes. I don't mind it, but a steady diet is not good. You know, where are the hopes? I think back to, I was a Star Trek guy, back in the mid-'60s when it first came on. And that was actually a really optimistic view of the future. Mankind had come together as one and resolved its differences. Now they were exploring. They had all kinds of, it was an integrated starship. That was a big deal back in that time. It was a hopeful story. So that's my sidebar. I think we need a hopeful story, because we can get lost in the other stories, and they don't work for us. If Atman is Brahman, and by the way, at the heart of many of the world's wisdom traditions is a similar teaching. We may phrase it in different ways, but it's there. And if Atman is Brahman, then we are being called to wake up and recognize this. And interestingly, a great deal of modern science is really pointing in that same direction, that we are all connected in ways we haven't understood. Physics, specifically quantum physics, shows us through discoveries such as entanglement that separation is an illusion. So who are you? Are you willing to open to the possibility that you are more than you've realized? But this is not an ego thing or story. It's beyond that. Yet it also includes that. It just puts it in its proper perspective. With this realization comes responsibility. And in this time when we're bombarded by information and distracted by all the noise, events, and dramas going on around us, we must take time out to nurture that great mystery that is within us. We can do this through silence, meditation, walks, music, poetry, art, things that nurture the soul. If we're talking about nurturing, that's mothering. Things that nurture the soul and the spirit, because this will reconnect you to what is often referred to as the true self. It's a foundational thing. There is a greater story of which we are all a vital part. And each one of us has a role to play. I always say there's no accident that you're here. Our journey in this life is to create and then share the highest and best story of who we are. I'm here to remind you this morning that in every beginning is also an ending, and in every ending a beginning. And sometimes Either of those things are difficult. Birth's not so easy. Sometimes death, or what appears to be death, is a challenge. It's said that the world changes one person at a time. It's the only way the world changes. It's one person at a time. Spiritual teachers throughout time, Jesus included, have said that we must die to who we have been in order to become who we are. Gandhi said, "Be the change." Someone else said, I can't recall who it was, but someone else said that life is shaking you to awaken you. So I'm going to do the plural, that life is shaking us to awaken us. It's time. So I say, it is time to rise and shine. Thank you.